So going straight into today's tutorial, we're going to be drafting a shirt with cam collar. I have my pattern paper here and I'm going to be drafting for the back pattern first of all before the front pattern. So the start line is my shoulder line. I'm going to be taking my neck width measurement of 3 inches and my neck depth measurement of 1.5 inches, and this is for the back pattern. Please note that. I'm going to connect the lines right now, and then still on the shoulder line I'm going to be taking half of my shoulder measurement, and half of my shoulder measurement is 8 inches, but because this is a shirt I'm going to be adding 1 inch to it for extra ease. So I'm going to be marking at a point of 9 inches, which I have there, and then from this point I'm coming down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, which is a norm already, and I'm connecting it straight up to my neck width measurement of 3 inches. Now from this point, I'm coming down by half of my armhole. Half of my armhole is 8 inches. Because this is a shirt, once again, I'm going to be adding half an inch for ease. You can decide to add 1 inch. It all depends on what you want. So I'm marking at 8.5 inches. And this point here is also going to serve as my chest line. So I'm connecting from my shoulder slope all the way down to my chest line there. And then I'm also going to um take half of this measurement of my armhole, which is 4.25. I'm extending my chest line this way so that I can create my armhole curve. Now on this chest line, I'm going to be making use of my hip measurement, and I'm going to be making use of a quarter of my hip measurement. A quarter of my hip measurement is 10.25. I'm adding half inch for ease because I don't want this to be too big. So I'm not using my bust measurements here. Then from this point, I'm taking the full length of my shirt, which is 26 inches. This shirt is going to be like, I want it to sit on my hip. So you can decide to do more, you can decide to do less. And then I will just square out the line at the bottom to indicate the length of my shirt at 26 inches. And then at this hemline here, I'm also going to be imputing a quarter of my hip measurement plus half an inch for ease. Please note that we're not adding any sewing allowance whatsoever. We're just drafting our normal body measurements. Now, I also want to make use of my waistline here because I want this to be a little bit fitted at the waistline. So I'm marking 17 inches from my shoulder all the way to my waistline at this point here, and that's 17 inches, and I'm also going to square this out. Now at this point, I'm going to be taking a quarter of my waist measurement, which is 7.75. And then whatever it is that I have as an excess here, I'm going to just divide it into two. So this is 3 inches times 4, that's 12 inches. That's quite a lot on my waistline as an excess. So whatever it is I have here, I'm just going to halve it, and that's 1.5 inches. So I think that's at a total of 6 inches is for me. So that's just fine. And then I will connect all of these points. Please note that this is totally optional. If you want, you can skip this step and just draft out, a straight shirt all the way without any fitting at the waistline. Now at the armhole, so I'm not going to be making use of that section anymore. So I'm just going to create my armhole curve. And then after this, we can now proceed to cutting this out. So if you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for tuning back in. Please don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. And if there are other suggestions you want for me to put up as a tutorial, please feel free. Thank you. Now I have a fresh piece of pattern paper, and this is what I'll be making use of to draft my front pattern. So I'm going to be coming down from the top here by 6 inches, and I'm going to be going in from here at 6 inches, and I'm just going to draw a straight line here and a straight line down. So this is what our pattern looks like now. This top here is the shoulder line, and the down part is like the center front. So I'm just basically replicating all of the body measurements I took on my back pattern. The only difference is that the neck depth for the front pattern is 3 inches deep. I'm extending my chest line. I'm taking the full measurement of my shirt at 26 inches. I'm sorry, at some point my camera skipped recording the bottom part of my draft pattern. And here is the waistline, and then I'm just going to connect all of these points together, creating my armhole curve here. And then I'm extending this chest line all the way to the center front of this pattern. Now, after doing this, now from this point here all the way to the bottom of my shirt, I'm going to be coming out by 1 inch, and this will serve as my button overlap. So I'm connecting it, and I'm connecting it, and I'm squaring it all the way down. Now to create the collar for our pattern, or to create the flap, I'm going to connect from this point all the way into my neck width, just like this. So from my chest line, from the 1 inch extending out of my chest line all the way into the neck line this way, and this is for the flap. Now to work on the collar that goes round about the neck, will have to take the measurements of the neckline on our back pattern. This is why you have to draft the back pattern first before the front piece. So I'm just going to measure what I have round about the neck of my pattern, and it's giving me about 4 inches. So it's kind of like 3 3/4, but I'll just make use of 4 inches. I just round it up to 4 inches. And then from this neck depth here, I'm going up by 4 inches. Please note that I'm not having my tape rule straight, so it's a little bit slanted this way. So I'm just going to mark from this point all the way down, and then I'll further go in by 1/4 inch just so that this collar sits properly on our neckline, and I'll also reconnect it down to the neck width of my front pattern. So I'm not going to be making use of this. And now for the wideness of our collar, I'm going to be coming out by 3.5 inches. Also note that my tape roll is not bent down. It's a little bit slanted up, not too high, not too low. You can just eyeball it. And then I'm marking at 3.5 inches here, and I'm extending it all the way to the 4 inches that I came up by. And then at this point here, I'm going to be going up by 1/2 inch, and this is to create the notched effect at the collar line here, and I'm going to be extending it this way, and then I will just connect this with a little curve. And this is all for our back of our front pattern. So I'm just going to proceed now to cutting this out. I'm starting from the bottom of my shirt all the way to the overlap, and then the notch, and cutting out the collar. So I'm going to be making use of this to cut on my actual fabric, and I'll be adding sewing allowances all around it. So here, this is what the front pattern looks like, and when it's unfold, this is what the overlap is going to look like on the actual fabric. This is my collar. I'm going to be cutting this out using my fabric, and I'm going to apply stay on it. So this is what I have on my actual fabric, 1/2 inch all around, 1 inch at the bottom and 1 inch at the side. So I want to make some manipulations on this pattern, and this is what I will use to cut out my facing, because when you have the overlap, it's the actual fabric that's meant to show, not to act as a lining. So it's the actual fabric that is meant to show. So this manipulation I'm making on this pattern is what I will use in cutting out my lining, which will be the same Ankara fabric. So I just came out by 4 inches. So at this point, I think it was too much. I might reduce it at the end of the day. But for now, I just came out by 4 inches and I extended it all the way to the shoulder line. So I'm not going to be making use of this. So I'll use this piece to cut out my lining. So if you want your lining to be a little bit smaller, it's fine. So here I have all my pieces cut out. Okay, so lifting this up, this is my lining piece. I also fused it with cloth gum, as you can see. And then this is the actual front fabric. The front is not cut on fold. Please note that it has an opening. And then this is a collar. I added 1/2 inch all the way around, and it's cut on fold at the center. And I have two pieces here. One will serve as the main fabric and one will serve as the lining for turning. So this is my 1/2 inch all around it. And then also I have my back pattern or my back fabric, which is cut on fold, 1/2 inch on the neckline, the shoulder, the armhole, 1 inch on the sides, and 1 inch for bending allowance at the bottom. And that's it for the drafting and cutting of this tutorial. The next upload will be on the actual sewing. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe till my next video. Bye.